The Valoran Empire had conquered 14 star systems before they even noticed Earth. Their survey drones cataloged it as a Class 4 world. Oxygen-rich atmosphere, abundant water, primitive electromagnetic communications. The inhabitants were fragmented into competing tribal factions, called nations, still burning fossil fuels and launching chemical rockets into low orbit. In the Grand Council chambers of their flagship hegemony's will, High Commander Zareth reviewed the tactical briefing with barely concealed disdain. 500 warships for this? He asked, his 4 eyes narrowing at the holographic display of Earth rotating slowly in the darkness. We subdued their collective with half that number. Protocol demands overwhelming force for first contact scenarios, his tactical officer replied. The planet shows signs of nuclear capability. Zareth made a dismissive gesture. Crude vision devices. Toys compared to our plasma lances. He stood, his 12-oot frame casting long shadows across the bridge. Transmit the standard ultimatum. I expect their surrender within 1 solar rotation. The message reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. Every screen, every phone, every communication device on the planet simultaneously displayed the same transmission. A towering alien figure, speaking in perfect English, and simultaneously in Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, and every other human language. People of Earth, I am High Commander Zareth of the Valoran Empire. Your world now falls under our domain. You will surrender all military assets. Dismantle your weapons and prepare for integration into the Empire. Resist, and your cities will burn. You have 24 hours to comply. The transmission ended. For exactly 7 seconds, the world stood still. Then the UN Security Council entered emergency session. The call went out not to generals or presidents, but to a single encrypted channel that had remained dormant for 33 years. In a bunker 3 miles beneath the Swiss Alps, lights flickered to life. Project Damocles was awake. Dr. Sarah Chen hadn't slept in 18 hours when she arrived at the command center. Around her, hundreds of personnel moved with practiced precision. Scientists, military strategists, engineers who'd spent their entire careers preparing for a day they hoped would never come. Status report, she demanded, striding to the central holo table. All primary assets are operational, Colonel Marcus Webb replied, his weathered face grim. Lunar installations report ready status. Satellite network is fully armed. The antimatter reserves are at 94% capacity. Sarah studied the display, showing 500 red dots in high orbit, arranged in a perfect blockade formation around Earth. Arrogant, she muttered. They're not even trying to hide their positions. Why would they? Marcus countered. As far as they know, we're primitives with chemical rockets. They think this is already over. Good. Sarah's fingers danced across the interface, pulling up communication protocols. Then, let's keep them thinking that. Send word to the surface governments. Prepare the acceptance speech. Make it convincing. Marcus's jaw tightened. You're sure about this? We get one shot, Colonel. One moment of surprise before they realize what we are. She met his eyes. Humanity didn't spend 3 decades building this network to surrender. We built it to send a message. 12 hours later, the UN Secretary General appeared on every broadcast channel, his face carefully composed in defeat. High Commander Zareth, he began, his voice heavy with resignation. After careful deliberation, the nations of Earth have agreed to your terms. We request 48 hours to coordinate the transfer of authority and prepare our populations for integration. We ask only for mercy and time. In orbit, Zareth watched the transmission with satisfaction. As expected, they fold like all the others. He turned to his fleet coordinator. Maintain position. In 48 hours, we land occupation forces. Prepare the subjugation protocols. What Zareth didn't see was the encrypted secondary transmission that pulsed from Earth immediately after the broadcast. A single command phrase in binary code that reached deep space installations, hidden satellites, and weapons platforms disguised as weather monitoring stations. Damocles Protocol Armada on the far side of the moon, in a crater that officially didn't exist. Massive railgun batteries rotated toward the stars. Each barrel was 300 meters long, powered by fusion reactors buried in lunar regolith. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, 12 mining stations that had operated for 20 years suddenly reconfigured. The ore processors were actually mass drivers, capable of accelerating payloads to relativistic speeds. In geosynchronous orbit, 17 communication satellites split open like flowers, revealing antimatter-catalyzed nuclear warheads, each one carrying more destructive power than every bomb humanity had detonated in its entire history, combined. And in that bunker beneath the Alps, Sarah Chen watched the countdown timer tick toward 0, her hand resting on a red authorization key. 47 hours and 59 minutes, until we tell them who we really are, she whispered. Marcus stood beside her, his expression carved from stone. They wanted overwhelming force. Let's show them what that actually means. Above Earth, the Valoran fleet maintained their perfect blockade formation, weapons powered down, shields at minimal strength. After all, what threat could primitives pose? High Commander Zareth reviewed reports from his science teams cataloging Earth's resources, already planning the tribute shipments back to the Empire. He had no idea he was standing in the barrel of the largest gun humanity had ever built. And in 48 hours, that gun was going to fire. End of Part 1. The Valerans expect submission. They'll get something else entirely. Part 2. When Earth unleashes Damocles, and the hunters become the hunted. The countdown reached 0 at 0600 hours Greenwich. Meanwhile, High Commander Zareth was reviewing integration protocols when his tactical officer's voice cut through the bridge chatter, sharp with confusion. Sir, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. The lunar railguns fired first. 16 tungsten penetrators, each weighing 20 tons, launched from the far side of the moon at 40 kilometers per second. They crossed the distance to Earth orbit in 97 seconds, silent, invisible, moving too fast for the Valoran sensors to track until it was far too late. The projectiles hit like the fist of an angry god. The first penetrator punched through the hegemony's will from stern to bow, the kinetic energy vaporizing everything in its path. The flagship shields designed to deflect energy weapons might as well have been tissue paper. The ship broke in half, atmosphere venting in glittering clouds of frozen oxygen. Zareth had exactly 1.3 seconds to process what was happening before his command deck explosively decompressed. Across the blockade formation, 15 more Valoran warships simply ceased to exist, replaced by expanding debris fields and the silent screams of dying crews. Execute Damocles. Sarah Chen's voice rang through the command center. All platforms weapons free. Show them what humanity built. The geosynchronous satellites fired next. 17 antimatter warheads detached from their disguised housings and ignited their propulsion systems. Each warhead contained exactly 3 grams of antimatter, suspended in magnetic containment, enough to release an explosion equivalent to 64 megatons. They didn't need to hit their targets directly, they just needed to get close. The warheads detonated in a carefully coordinated pattern, creating a sphere of annihilation that engulfed the densest cluster of Valoran ships. Matter met antimatter, and Einstein's equation played out in lethal perfection. MC2. The explosions were visible from Earth's surface, new stars blooming in orbit, each one erasing dozens of alien warships in microscons. The electromagnetic pulse alone fried the electronics of every Valoran vessel within 500 kilometers, confirming 83 hostile vessels destroyed. Webb reported, his voice steady, despite the magnitude of what they were witnessing. The remaining fleet is breaking formation they're trying to scatter. Don't let them. Sarah's fingers flew across her console. Activate the belt stations. I want firing solutions on every ship attempting to flee. In the asteroid belt, the disguised mass drivers came online. For 20 years, humanity had been mining asteroids, publicly searching for rare metals and resources. What they'd actually been doing was positioning weapons platforms in the one place no one would look, the empty space between planets, where debris was common and detection nearly impossible. The mass drivers began hurling projectiles toward pre-calculated intercept points. These weren't sophisticated missiles, just chunks of nickel iron accelerated to percentages of light speed. They didn't need guidance systems. At those velocities, even a near miss would destroy a target. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Sub-Commander Dren watched his fleet die with mounting horror. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted. "All ships, Emergency FTL jump. We can't, sir. His navigator's voice cracked. Something's disrupting our jump drives. Some kind of gravitational interference. The tidal generators activated on cue. Hidden among Earth's ocean monitoring satellites were 12 gravitational field generators, humanity's most experimental and dangerous technology. They created localized space-time distortions, effectively jamming faster than light travel within their operating radius. The Valerans were trapped. They planned this, Dren whispered, his four wide with the emotion the Valeran Empire hadn't experienced in 3 centuries. Fear. This wasn't a primitive world. This was a trap. They wanted us to come. Another wave of kinetic penetrators tore through his fleet. The Eternal Conquest shuddered as a near miss sent debris hammering against the hull. How is this possible? His weapons officer stammered. Our intelligence said they were decades away from interstellar capability. They lied. Dren's voice was hollow. Everything we saw, everything they showed us, it was a deception. These aren't primitives. These are Ina, and the communication system crackled to life, and a human voice filled every Valoran bridge simultaneously. Attention, Valoran fleet. Dr. Sarah Chen's words were precise, cold, utterly without mercy. You came to our world expecting an easy conquest. You saw our divisions and assumed weakness. You saw our chemical rockets and assumed incompetence. You made a fatal error. You confused patience with primitiveness. Another cluster of ships exploded on the tactical display. For 3 decades we prepared for you. We built weapons in plain sight and called them peaceful research. We unified in secret while pretending to fight among ourselves. We studied every alien encounter, every report, every piece of evidence that we weren't alone, and we prepared. Dren's tactical screen showed the horrifying truth. Of the 500 ships that had arrived in Earth orbit, fewer than 200 remained, and the humans were still firing. You wanted to send us a message about the Valoran Empire's strength. Sarah's voice carried the weight of billions standing behind her. Allow us to send one back. This is Earth. We are humanity, and if you come to our home with weapons drawn, you'd better pray to whatever gods you believe in. The lunar railguns fired again. The anti-Adder warheads found new targets. The mass drivers threw their deadly cargo across the void because we don't take prisoners. In the command center beneath the Alps, Sarah watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The red dots representing hostile vessels were disappearing at an accelerating rate. They're attempting to surrender. Webb reported multiple ships broadcasting distress signals offering to withdraw. Denied. Sarah's voice was iron. We gave them 24 hours to leave peacefully. They chose war. Now they get to learn what happens when you threaten humanity's home. Marcus met her eyes. The fleet is broken. We've won. No, Sarah corrected, her gaze fixed on the dwindling red dots. We've survived. Winning comes next. She pulled up a new display. Long-range sensor data showing coordinates far beyond Earth's solar system. They came from somewhere, Colonel. They have a home, and they need to understand definitively that Earth is off limits. Marcus's expression hardened as he understood. You want to take the fight to them? I want to make sure no one else makes the same mistake the Valerans did. Sarah's fingers moved across the console, pulling up ship designs, weapon specifications, and a project name that made Marcus's blood run cold. Project Retribution above Earth. The last Valeran warships fell silent, their hulls punctured, their crews dead or dying. The blockade that was supposed to bring humanity to its knees had become a graveyard. But in the debris field, one escape pod managed to activate its emergency beacon, a single transmission that would reach Valoran space in 3 weeks. A warning, a message that would change everything. Earth wasn't just dangerous, Earth was hunting.